Joining me now, Judge Jeanine Pirro, co-host of The Five Judge.
I worry about this country. I worry about where we're going. I worry about the anger on the left.
For me, who would you want to play you in a movie?
Me.
For many years, Jeanine Pirro and Albert Pirro were seen as a powerful couple, closely connected both in politics and behind the scenes. But behind their polished public image lay a series of personal fractures, scandals, legal crises, and a steady erosion of trust that eventually led to the collapse of their marriage. Jeanine's decision to divorce wasn't merely a personal choice. It marked the end of an era she once described as a silent survival journey. What really happened between them? Let's take a deeper look into one of the most scrutinized marriages in New York's political history. Jeanine Pirro was born in 1951 in Elmira, New York, into a Lebanese-American Maronite Catholic family. Raised in a middle-class environment, her father worked in mobile home sales while her mother was a local fashion model. Jeanine was academically gifted, skipping grades, graduating high school early, and earning her bachelor's degree from the University at Buffalo before attending Albany Law School. There, she stood out as editor of the Law Review, and met Albert Pirro, a fellow law student who would soon become her life partner and collaborator in her early legal and political career. The two married in 1975 and pursued their professional ambitions in parallel. Jeanine entered public service as an assistant in the Westchester County District Attorney's Office, while Albert quickly found success in commercial real estate law. Within 2 decades, Jeanine made history as the first woman elected as a Westchester County judge in 1990 and became district attorney in 1993, a position she held through 3 re-elections until 2005. She focused on cases involving domestic violence, elder protection, and major crimes, earning a reputation as a tough and high-profile prosecutor. Meanwhile, Albert remained a key, albeit unofficial, player in the background, leveraging his vast network in real estate and politics to support his wife's political campaigns. The 1990s were a period of triumph for the Pirros. Jeanine had become not only a respected legal figure but a media presence as well, even being named one of People magazine's 50 Most Beautiful People. In 1997, an unusual honor for someone in the legal profession. Albert ran a top law firm in Westchester, aligning with public contractors and building a strong financial base for the family. Together, they were seen as a rising political dynasty, with Jeanine herself suggesting during a CNN interview, "We work as a team. I handle the legal, he handles the practical." But their success brought scrutiny. Questions arose about potential conflicts of interest when Albert's firm represented developers with business before county agencies overseen by Jeanine. Though no formal charges were filed, the press began digging deeper into their financial dealings. By the early 2000s, they appeared more often in investigative columns than in flattering political profiles. At the same time, Jeanine began to appear less frequently alongside her husband at public events, fueling speculation. Insiders noted she spent more time at the office and avoided private political functions. Whispers of a looming crisis circulated in legal and political circles. Then, a long-buried secret came to light, not through political enemies or the press, but via a court ruling. In 1998, Albert Pirro's name surfaced in a Florida civil lawsuit involving child custody. He was ordered to take a DNA test, which confirmed he was the biological father of a 15-year-old girl born from an extramarital affair in the early 1980s. At the very time Jeanine was establishing her career as a prosecutor. The revelation shocked the public as court documents and media coverage exploded across headlines. Jeanine, then still serving as Westchester's district attorney, did not immediately comment. Albert's betrayal was no longer just a personal issue, it had direct consequences for Jeanine's public image. The press questioned both her moral judgment and credibility. One New York Observer reporter put it bluntly, "If Pirro didn't know, that's dangerously blind. If she did, it's calculated silence." The couple issued only a brief statement, insisting it was a private legal matter, but their silence did little to quiet the growing outrage. The fallout was swift and far-reaching. Jeanine, once seen as a potential contender for higher office in New York State, now found her career and reputation under siege. The public disillusionment with a couple once hailed as a political ideal was as much about personal betrayal as it was about the perception of hypocrisy. Albert's actions, and their consequences, would set the stage for the unraveling of one of New York's most talked about political marriages. Running for state and federal positions, Jeanine Pirro had long been backed by conservative voter groups who value traditional family ideals. But the revelation of her husband Albert's secret child and legal troubles shattered that foundation. Many organizations swiftly withdrew their support, and some advocacy groups publicly distanced themselves from her. Though she continued in her role as Westchester District Attorney, the media began to scrutinize her every move and word. Public appearances grew more tense, and interviews, which had once focused on policy and legal issues, now frequently veered into personal territory. Inside the prosecutor's office, colleagues noticed a clear change. Jeanine became more withdrawn, attending only major cases and maintaining a tightly packed schedule. She still ran everything, but she wasn't the same media-savvy figure she used to be, one assistant told the Daily Beast. Media relations were now carefully controlled, with multiple layers of approval to protect her increasingly fragile public image. Meanwhile, Albert Pirro remained silent. Ordered by the court to pay child support, he continued his legal work, avoided the media, and declined all interview requests. His refusal to issue a public apology only worsened his image. Analysts often cited him as the man who single-handedly sabotaged a political campaign that had never fully launched. Despite the deep betrayal, Jeanine did not immediately pursue separation. Observers speculated she was buying time to stabilize her public brand, especially with 2 teenage children still at home. However, behind the scenes, subtle financial changes suggested a gradual uncoupling. Public asset records showed alterations. Primary home ownership shifted, bank accounts were separated, and some company shares were re-registered solely under Jeanine's name. By 2005, as she prepared to run for the U.S. Senate, Jeanine still maintained the appearance of a unified family. But the 1998 scandal resurfaced. Political opponents weaponized it, accusing her of moral inconsistency. One Democratic strategist famously remarked, "If she can't manage her own household, how can she represent New York and Washington?" Before she could recover her damaged personal credibility, an even heavier blow landed, this time from the very legal system she had served for decades. On June 22, 2000, a federal court in New York found Albert Pirro guilty on 23 counts, including tax fraud, falsifying personal expenses, and conspiring to conceal more than $1 million in income. He was sentenced to 29 months in prison, making it one of the most serious white-collar crime cases involving a private attorney in New York in the early 21st century. The indictment painted a damning picture. Albert had used company accounts to pay for luxury cars, high-end real estate, and even tuition fees for the child he fathered outside his marriage. Shockingly, some of the misused funds were tied to campaign events and social gatherings that Jeanine had attended. While there was no evidence proving she had knowledge or approved of these expenditures, the financial entanglement cast a shadow over her office and her public integrity. Under mounting pressure, Jeanine addressed the media in a brief but firm press conference following the sentencing. "No one, whether family, friends, or colleagues, is above the reach of the law. The court's decision is proof of that. I accept this reality and will continue to perform my duties impartially," she stated. The clip was replayed endlessly on national television and was viewed as her strongest stance since the scandal broke. Still, political analysts were unconvinced it was enough to repair the damage to her image. Albert began serving his sentence in early 2001 at Allenwood Federal Prison in Pennsylvania. During his incarceration, Jeanine made no officially recorded visits. She remained in Westchester with their children and severed all public ties with his family. Privately, she hired a team of legal and financial advisors to manage assets and audit transactions that may have been affected by the fallout. At the same time, television networks began reaching out to Jeanine, offering her a new path, to lend her legal insight as a commentator, a role that would soon mark the beginning of a dramatic career pivot. While still in office, Jeanine Pirro began seriously considering a transition to media. A senior aide at the district attorney's office at the time confirmed that she understood her credibility in public service had taken a hit, but she also saw an opportunity to rebuild her image independently by leaving the political sphere behind. In 2006, Jeanine officially joined Fox News as a legal analyst, marking the first significant step in her post-public service career. To the public, her quiet exit from politics was seen as an unspoken acknowledgement that her political aspirations had been irreparably damaged following Albert's conviction. However, to media analysts, it was viewed as a strategic reinvention. The launch of Justice with Judge Jeanine in 2011 was a major success, drawing millions of viewers and establishing her as a prominent media figure. A commentator at Politico noted, "Jeanine did what many disgraced political figures couldn't. She rebuilt her personal brand on a new platform where she had full control of the narrative." Meanwhile, Albert Pirro, released in 2002 after serving 17 months for good behavior, vanished from the public eye entirely. Jeanine has never publicly commented on his prison time, and that prolonged silence only further solidified public perception that their marriage had entered a frozen, irreparable state, waiting for the final event to end it officially. But Jeanine's control over her public image would soon be tested again. By the end of 2006, she was drawn into another controversy, this time due to a personal decision that blurred ethical boundaries. An internal recording surfaced, revealing that Jeanine had discussed with a private investigator the possibility of placing a listening device on a yacht frequently used by Albert Pirro. Her goal: to gather evidence of infidelity. The New York Daily News broke the story, prompting a preliminary investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office over potential privacy violations. According to investigative sources, Jeanine had contacted Bernard Kerik, former NYPD commissioner and one-time nominee for Secretary of Homeland Security, to help monitor Albert. Unbeknownst to Jeanine, Kerik was already under surveillance in a separate criminal case, and their conversation was recorded, becoming indirect evidence against her. In the leaked audio, Jeanine is heard saying, "I can't let him get away with it again. I want clear evidence." The story exploded in the national media. For many, the idea of a former high-profile prosecutor using private surveillance tactics to track her husband crossed a serious ethical line. On MSNBC, one commentator remarked, "If she weren't a former public official, this might just be a personal reaction. But given her position in history, this conduct exceeds what's acceptable." Fox News, where Jeanine was a regular contributor, swiftly suspended her appearances on legal segments. Jeanine responded by denying any legal wrongdoing, claiming it had been a private discussion that never led to action. "No device was ever used. No surveillance was ever conducted. I considered it and ultimately decided against it," she stated. Despite the denial, authorities opened a legal review to assess the intent behind the incident. No charges were ultimately filed, but Jeanine's public image was once again left exposed and vulnerable. In an exclusive CNN interview weeks later, Jeanine finally spoke out. "I've always been someone who pursued justice to the end, but when everything falls apart in your personal life, sometimes you consider irrational options just to protect yourself." That indirect admission dominated headlines. The Washington Post commented, "Jeanine does not deny the pain, but she also cannot deny that she went too far in defending her personal honor." After that moment, Jeanine and Albert Pirro were never publicly seen together again. Ceremonies, conferences, and community events they once attended side by side now featured only Jeanine, marking the quiet, final unraveling of one of New York's most scrutinized power couples. Political observers describe this period as a non-announced separation phase, where all signs indicated that Jeanine and Albert Pirro's relationship had effectively ended, with only a legal formality left to confirm it. Across media platforms, particularly among conservative voter forums, opinions were sharply divided. Some believed Jeanine had acted out of personal pain, while others warned that, as a media figure, she could not claim the right to bypass legal boundaries. An internal Fox News survey at the time revealed that her approval rating dropped by more than 20% within 2 weeks of the scandal's emergence. Despite mounting pressure, Jeanine did not withdraw from television. On the contrary, she returned to Fox News 3 months later with a noticeably calmer demeanor. She deliberately avoided commentary on family ethics and focused exclusively on legal analysis. This pivot was seen as a smart move that gradually restored her credibility among core viewers and secured her long-term role as a legal editor on air. Ultimately, when all layers of personal defense had been peeled away, Jeanine made the final decision to sever ties completely from a past once intertwined with power, yet also filled with contradiction and bitterness. In November 2007, after more than 3 decades together, and years of enduring personal scandal and legal crises, Jeanine Pirro confirmed her separation from Albert Pirro. It wasn't until 2013 that the divorce was officially approved by the court, following an agreement on assets, parenting responsibilities, and personal finances. Since stepping away from public office and transitioning into mainstream television, Jeanine gradually reshaped her image as a blunt, uncompromising legal expert. Her Fox News program Justice with Judge Jeanine, which began airing in 2011, quickly gained a weekly viewership of over 2 million. She captivated audiences not only with her legal insights but also with her strong stances on political, social, and national security issues, becoming a central voice for conservative voters throughout the 2010s. Beyond television, Jeanine also found success as an author. Her 2018 book Liars, Leakers, and Liberals topped the charts on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and in 2023, she published another bestseller, Crimes Against America, continuing her focus on threats to traditional values and national security. Her book tours drew thousands of attendees, many of whom viewed her as a symbol of steadfast conservatism in a politically divided era. Jeanine's career reached a new milestone in May 2025, when President Donald Trump, during his second term, appointed her as acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. Though the decision faced criticism due to her limited federal-level experience, the White House defended the appointment by citing her strong legal background and effective communication skills. Jeanine was sworn in on May 28 with a firm declaration. "The security of the Capitol is priority number 1. No one has the privilege to stand above the law." Just days later, she announced her resignation from Fox News, ending a 17-year run with the network that had reignited her career. Analysts saw this move as part of a larger political calculation, possibly paving the way for a federal judicial role or a future cabinet position, should the Republican Party remain in power. Public reactions remained split. Supporters praised Jeanine as a woman who overcame personal and political crises to rise again, while critics argued she embodied the growing trend of politicizing the judiciary. Meanwhile, Albert Pirro, after receiving a presidential pardon from Donald Trump in 2021, has since lived a quiet life in Florida, entirely removed from the spotlight. Through legal acclaim, personal scandal, political downfall, and media resurgence, Jeanine Pirro stands today as someone who nearly lost everything, but never surrendered her right to shape her own destiny. Her decisiveness, principles, and intensity make her a symbol to supporters, while even her critics acknowledge the extent of her influence. If you've followed Jeanine Pirro through her many chapters, from prosecution to television, from scandal to comeback, share this video, leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more intense stories from the world of politics and media.